It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 667 of Accelerate, 667 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. I have two great conversations lined up for you today. Joining me first will be Pat Lynch. Pat's the Vice President of Sales Enablement Excellence and Innovation at MindTickle. And following my talk with Pat is another in my series of weekly conversations with my good friend, Bridget Gleason. Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends at Discover.org. The Discover.org platform is a game changer for sales and marketing professionals. This feature-rich sales intelligence platform is supported by 250-plus researchers who continually update contact data and provide account-specific insights to help sales and marketing teams break ahead of the pack. See the product live at discoverorg.com/schedule-demo. That's discoverorg.com/schedule-demo. Okay, joining me on the first segment of Accelerate this week is Pat Lynch. As I mentioned before, Pat is the Vice President of Sales Enablement Excellence and Innovation at MindTickle. Now, Pat was just on Accelerate a few months ago, and we had such an interesting conversation about the differences between sales training and sales enablement that I asked him to come back on the show, and we're going to continue the conversation we started then. Now, in this part of our talk, we talk about some of the more pressing learning and educational needs that sales teams have, and needs that perhaps enablement can respond to more quickly than can conventional sales training. So check it out. Pat Lynch, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Andy Paul. It's a pleasure to be back.
Oh, it's great to have you. Great to have you. So we were just talking before I got on there. You've got a little bit of an injury.
Yes. Well, I live in Colorado, and I was skiing on the second to the last day of the season on the last run of the day. And
so you're tired?
Well, actually, not too much. I wasn't really too bad, but snow conditions changed radically, and we call it Velcro snow. So the wet snow grabbed my ski and launched me in midair. And as my ski buddy said, I looked like a yard sale. So yeah, I broke my wrist in two places, but good news, no surgery. So I feel very grateful.
And your equipment spread out all over the slope.
It did, and the only embarrassment was having told hundreds of people over the years as a former national ski patrolman on the last run of the day to take it easy. Yeah, that was me. So I guess I should have taken it easier.
And it's always great to have your friends there to support you. You look like a yard sale. I remember my first really bad bicycle crash. I was riding with a guy, and we were coming down a pretty steep hill, going at a pretty high rate of speed, probably, high 20s, low 30s, and my back tire exploded. And I just go right over the handlebars because, the rim hits the road, pops me up over, and managed to take most of the skin off my back and concussion and so on. But his first word as he zooms up to me was, "Cool crash."
No way. Well, thank God it was cool looking, right? My yard sale and your cool crash, but yeah, at another time, we'll share biking stories. Thank God, my only 911 experience is, of course, road cycling. So
yeah. As I said, it's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. So
That's
I've had
right.
my share. Maybe I've had your crashes. I think maybe you're safe if we share it together.
The good news is we can only go up from here.
There we go. So hey, we want to continue where we sort of left off last time, and I don't think we really got to the harder matter. We were talking about sales enablement, and so one of the topics I wanted to lead with was, everybody largely agrees that sales training is broken, and but I think there's still a place for it, I guess. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sales training, and then talk about what some of the alternatives are to that, because to me the big divide is between training and education. The more time I've spent in sales, which has been 4 decades at this point, is that it really becomes clearer and clearer to me that sort of the point training, has its purpose has sort of been outlived its purpose, and though in most cases, but that what we really need is we need to educate sellers about how to get a broader perspective on the world, how they can really participate in the conversations their customers want to have, and we'll get into more of the details later. But I guess the interest in your perspective, sort of what is the real role of sales training right now as it's sort of executed? Sort of these event-based skills training or methodology training and so on?
Sure. Well, having been through probably 6 formal sales training methodologies over the course of my selling profession, going on 24 years now, they're all very good. I was speaking to the CEO of a very reputable sales training company, and he told me quite candidly, he goes, "Look, Pat, we're all saying basically the same stuff for many years now." And I'm thinking, okay, is that a good thing or or a bad thing? Yet I don't think there's going to be really anything new from a sales methodology. I think it's all about execution, application, and reinforcement. And what I find very interesting is if you just look at the course of sales training from a corporate learning perspective, it's all replicated from academia, the classroom experience. And really in the US, it's only about 50 years old. But guess what? It hasn't changed. It's still ILT, instructor-led training. Now, I can tell you, having been on both sides, right, having worked at Miller Heiman Group, but with CSO Insights, having been through their training, which, quite candidly, I found it was some of the only training that made me money. But I've been through other sales training methodologies, and it's still instructor-led training, workbook, event-based. All the research shows you lose a majority of that. You're only able to retain 10, 20%. The issue is, how do you use it from a practical standpoint if you're in sales? And the answer is, you don't. It's event-based, right? So the only way you can actually use that learning if it's reinforced, and how is it reinforced? Maybe, if you're lucky, through some coaching. Maybe if you're lucky, through some sales managers who are actually very good coaches and understand the importance of reinforcement. Maybe if you have some sales technology, platform, a lot of sales tools out there, but for the most part, it's broke, kind of like my wrist. And you need a cast on it, but it can be fixed.
Well, yeah. So, I think part of the thing that happens that we sort of do a disservice to salespeople is this idea that there's like one true way, right? I understand training on methodologies and why a company might want to sort of base its world on, Miller Heiman or Sandler or whatever. But for me, the fact of the matter is, I look at myself, and I've had a very successful career in sales, is I'm sort of the sum total of everything, that I've been exposed to. I've gone through, and I'm sure you are too. I've gone through maybe 3. I've Miller Heiman, Spin, one other I can't remember at this point. But then it seems like you have this proliferation. I saw one today, a webinar. Somebody said, invite to webinar on conversational selling. And it's like, I'm thinking, okay, we can't sell without a conversation. So what exactly are they talking about? It's sort of like, relationship selling. It's like, okay, we can't sell without a relationship.
Right. Oh, gosh.
And it's like, for people who really say, what you really need to do is pay attention and sort of pick and choose, I think, and I suspect you've done what I've done, which is over time I'm a sum total of everything. Right.
And if you, for those of you, I know this is a podcast, but behind me is a list of sales books. There were 2 bookcases I had to winnow down to fit the whiteboard. But what's interesting is I've highlighted almost everything I've read. Well, I have to turn around, get the book, maybe go online and pull out a key point that I want to remember to apply. Mm-hmm. That is not ongoing and continuous learning. Okay. So that's Pat with, 50 sales books, trying to remember which one do I want to use for this particular instance. It's just not effective. It doesn't happen very often. And it's certainly not going to make me money if I'm in full-time selling. So I think that's where there's such an outstanding opportunity, Andy, with technology. And I know maybe I'm, my wife calls me the eternal optimist, but I am really optimistic for frontline salespeople, sales managers, and sales leaders, because the technology, not only at MindTickle, because we're a platform, but some of the other things I'm seeing out there genuinely can help salespeople. Here's the caveat, though. I was just on the phone with Jim Dickey of CSO Insights, and he was sharing with me that, and I've seen a lot of research, read a lot of research, Forrester, Gartner, Aberdeen, IDC, Serious Decisions. But he kind of painted this bleak picture. He said, Pat, we've been doing research for 25 years now, and almost all of the sales metrics but one are down.
Right. And we talked about this last time.
And so even though I'm the eternal optimist, I'm pushing snow uphill. But somebody's got to do it.
Well, but part of it seems to me is that somebody has to care. And so here's a perfect example. And I'm not going to name names because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I was at a conference this week and was talking to a CRO of a very well-known SaaS company. And, they're growing very rapidly. And we were sort of having this conversation about the future of selling. And I said, well, to me, there's a problem. The problem is that, especially in the SaaS business, is you guys have institutionalized bad performance. And he starts, what do you mean? I said, well, you've institutionalized, you all think it's great that you close 20% of your business out of your pipeline. I said, I'm going to guess that's sort of your close rate. And he goes, yeah, it's exactly 20%. And I said, so when you're thinking about growing sales, what you're thinking about is what we've built this machine to get leads into the top of the funnel. And I said, well, that's great, but that seems really expensive. Why don't you just teach your sellers and help them learn how to increase their close rates from 20 to 21% to 22%. And if you get up to 30%, you don't need to hire all those extra SDRs because you're generating all this additional revenue out of the leads you're already generating. It was like the thought, and this, again, not trying to pick on him, it's like the thought had never occurred to him. It's not in his plan at all to address that. And so it seems like, well, isn't this sort of one of the issues we're dealing with? When I talk about education and people learning, is that you would think that'd be the first thing you'd be curious about as a sales leader is how to improve the productivity of the people actually selling.
Well, yeah, and productivity is a major issue because productivity keeps going down. So I think I mentioned this to you in part one, but some of the research and data I've seen from both Forrester and CSO Insights is overall quota attainment and win rates, things like that. They're down over the last 6 years. That is truly a slippery slope. So, maybe this, SaaS company, high growth, good for them. That's just one marketplace. That's one vertical market. I would say 90% of businesses don't have those problems. Those are nice problems to have. So getting back a little bit about training, what's interesting is what we're seeing and what we're really starting to develop is if on the left-hand side you have the word training and an arrow, and it's pointing to enablement. And then above training and enablement, you have the word learning. Look, learning's always going to be with us, of course, but I don't know, and I don't know that sales training is going to be with us for a long time. And the reason I say that is because training is just not cutting it as we know it today. Mm-hmm. And so I believe we're moving genuinely more toward enablement, not only enablement of salespeople, but enablement of product development, enablement of marketing, enablement of field engineering, enablement of customer success. So it begs the question, Pat, what's the difference between training and enablement? And I think, you can train an animal and you can enable a person. What I mean by that is enabling somebody to achieve more, achieve faster, achieve sustainably. I don't know that I'm going to train somebody faster, that I'm going to train somebody to win more and train somebody to sustainability. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, Andy, and you can correct me, but the word training doesn't fit in the future vocabulary to actually learn so that you can achieve outcomes.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, I couldn't agree more. In fact, actually, the title of I have a weekly newsletter I send out, and the title of the lead article last time was "You educate children, you train pets." And really about this topic is that I see this huge education gap, right? I mean, we touched this a little bit the first time, is that, how do we motivate individual contributors, frontline managers, and so on to want to learn more about the profession they're in, and not just sort of situational training and not limiting enablement at all, but the science of selling, social psychology, decision making, all these things that contribute to the conversation around sales. Now, people need to be more engaged and wanting to learn more about that, and that is going to enable their success as well. I mean, I'm a firm believer. I look at the top performers that I've worked with, that I've studied, is they are the most well-rounded people, the most curious, that have the broadest reading lists, and so on. And I think there's a role for companies in that. And I think this is to me is one of the transitions with training and I think enablement as well is I've interviewed some CEOs for this show and for other work I'm doing where, they have companies where they set aside 30 minutes every day of company time where all work stops and they learn.
Wow.
And
impressive.
And it seems like to me that's where we have to go. To me, that's the, I don't say the revolution because I hate the word in sales, but I mean it's that's sort of the big transformation I see is that we have to institutionalize learning in a way that's not currently institutionalized. Right.
So a couple things to talk about in this podcast, obviously, is kind of what's the difference between MindTickle, which is a sales readiness cross-functional learning platform, and an LMS, learning management system. I think I may have said it before. And again, I have nothing against LMSs, but I consider them legacy management systems.
Yeah, I agree.
Start to apply them to outcomes. It's apples and oranges. But there's a great report put out by Burson Deloitte. I'll mention some of their research in our call. The last 2 years, they found that learners only have 24 minutes a week to actually learn. 24 minutes a week. Now that's 2 years in a row. And so,
well, how are they defining that though? I mean, the 24 minutes, because the thing I find sort of ironic is we talk about this in the sales environment, yet CSO Insights, I believe, reports showing that, hey, sales reps are only spending roughly a third of their time selling anyway. So you would think they have more than 24 minutes, but I'll throw that back to you.
Yeah, no worries. So, I mean, really, it's just 1% of a typical work week in that a lot of the employees, that's all they've got time to focus on training and development. They're actually, I was just asked this question, well, why? And I said, well, they're distracted. If you look at the research when smartphones came on the market, it's fascinating. Really, it's fascinating to see the drop in sales productivity. The drop in learning time spent. Notice that's not qualitative; that's just quantitative. But the stats on people and using their devices, it's incredible. So one of the things I'll just share this with you. I just got off the phone with Scott Santucci, one of the founders and the chairman of the Sales Enablement Society.
Right.
We're doing a strategy session for sales enablement and other executives in Atlanta next week. And what we're doing is we're actually creating, it's not going to be a presentation, it's going to be a workshop. And we're actually printing out a workshop manual so that people can follow along the presentation, but also have an opportunity to ask questions, take notes. We just did this 2 weeks ago in New York City, and I posted something on LinkedIn. In all complete honesty, it was after the session in New York City, I can't remember when everybody during the hour and a half or hour was heads down, copiously taking notes the entire time. I'm not since I was in college. And so maybe we didn't educate them up front enough, but what that told me was the content is so rich that literally people are taking out pads of paper, and we had notebooks for them, and they were just writing furiously to try to retain as much information in the note so that later on they can go back to that. That tells me we hit a chord. So we're just going to take that, we're going to make it a workshop. And so I think that's an opportunity for people to actually learn. And it's going to obviously be 60 minutes, so everybody there will almost have triple the time they normally spend.
Yeah, well, I don't know. To me, it seems like the future is more along the line of what MindTickle is trying to do. I would maybe extend it, as I said, because I think at some point corporations have to realize that they're putting too much of the onus on individuals to invest in their own development when they really need to bring some of that in-house and create this learning culture, which could be technology based in some respects, but also I think people just have to sort of say, look, this is a worthwhile investment of time from a corporate standpoint.
Yeah, so there's a couple things at play. Actually, probably one of the biggest things at play is where MindTickle is an early disruptor to the whole L&D, LMS learning space. Disruptor in a real positive way. And I'm not saying that because I work for MindTickle. I'm saying that because if you really want to help salespeople, you want them to win. And so with a focus on outcomes and then working backwards, that's where we're helping them to win. So just to give you an example of, from a learning L&D perspective, I'm meeting with 14 chief learning officers next week in Atlanta. I've met with probably 15, many of them in the Fortune 500 over the last 2 months. I'm hearing consistency in that they're saying LMS is a dinosaur. I want to fire my LMS. I can't get outcomes out of my LMS. Now, notice these are L&D people, right?
Sure.
And they don't control a lot of the sales training.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what they're hearing more and more is, where's my ROI on L&D? Where's the ROI on the LMS platform? So where MindTickle plays is, we're not a rip and replace. I like to say more, we're a retire and let it expire. We play very nicely with a lot of LMSs. We integrate with many of them so that version control is not an issue, but there are clear capabilities differentiation. So micro-learning is a key component of our platform. That's done with some LMS. We do video role-play, coaching, gamification, quizzes, badges, certifications, leaderboards. That really doesn't exist in an LMS. We provide visual analytics, heat maps, literally real-time gap analysis based on competency models. All of those things, that's really not the purpose of LMS. A little bit of it, absolutely. They do a great job at compliance learning, check-the-box learning. But when you're talking sales, it's all about outcomes. And with LMS, there is no ongoing continuous learning while you're selling. It's just apples and oranges. But that's
because it's very course oriented. It's course oriented.
Absolutely. And and again, we haven't even talked about analytics, real-time coaching. An LMS was not designed for that. So I think I'm never going to throw LMS under a bus. But I definitely think, at least from the CLOs that I've listened to, they know LMS is not appropriate for future learning. For outcomes-based learning, I should say.
Well, yeah, for outcomes-based learning. And I mean, what technology like MindTickle offers, I think, is part of the reason I'm excited about offerings like that, is that it's situational. It's adaptable to what's happening in the moment, whereas courses are sort of static, right? And you invest a lot of time in courses, and they become, as you said, these legacy learning systems, and just not cost effective.
Well, not only not cost effective, but I'll just share some research with you. So 67% of people are learning on mobile devices today. So, and the CLOs that I've met with, most of the LMS and what they want to do with learning, right? So is not on mobile. So you can train people, but my question is, can you show me how they've learned? And they can't. They can show me a score, but there's no correlation to outcomes. That's okay. But what is the radical differentiator between our platform at MindTickle and everybody else? And this is what's so exciting, what we're starting to see, is you can actually start to correlate. Yes, I'm using the word correlate. You can start to see the correlation of learning outcomes to performance outcomes. Now, full transparency, our platform does not allow those two to come together, okay? But if you can start to show how learning outcomes, which you can see on our platform by using several different use cases like coaching, onboarding, gamification, surveys, events, all of those different use cases or business processes, you genuinely can start to see how your top performers, your B players, your C players how those outcomes affect performance. And that's very exciting and it's very powerful if you're a sales leader. And what's really interesting to me is at MindTickle, we have not pursued CHROs. We have not pursued L&D in training.
Mm-hmm.
What I find incredibly affirming is that these different lines of business around HR, L&D, et cetera, they are coming to us and they're saying, hey, what are you doing that's getting those type of incredible results for our sales organization? From a learning perspective, they're asking us.
Sure.
So again, it's just more affirmation that they need help, and hopefully we can help them.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we've recorded for people who are listening to this and watching, and people will be watching this. We've recorded a demonstration of MindTickle. People will be able to access if they want to see some of the details with Daniel Cooperman from your organization. So that gives more detail about that. But I think, you start laying out a scenario when we look at, what I'm concerned about in terms of education, right, is the sort of continual engagement with something new. And I think that's really the critical aspect for sales is this. Yeah, whether you're motivating curiosity or not, I mean, you're hopefully are to some degree, right? And you have a vehicle in which to do that, because curiosity is what's going to drive people to say, hey, what I learned today on my phone based on questions that were pushed to me, I want to learn more about that. Hey, I understand there's a reference to a book or something. I'll go listen to the book, when I'm on the treadmill the next 10 days or whatever. Right.
Well, I mean, here's, again, just to quote from Deloitte, it's a very exciting time for us. Unemployment is at a record low. And according to the Deloitte report, did you know that as far as most in-demand jobs in 2018 and most in-demand skills, the second highest most in-demand skills is selling? I mean, across the board.
Yeah, wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, so wow, that's a good thing for us, right? Yet it's an enormous opportunity we have in the sales enablement, in the enablement profession. I mean, are you kidding me? If that's the second highest most in-demand skills according to Deloitte, what are we doing about that to not only meet those needs, but to really accentuate, to help those learners who are now in the sales profession win, to help them achieve the objectives they're trying to achieve day in and day out, learning on a continuous basis as they're selling. It's actually the new way of selling. But again, just to quote another statistic, which I find incredibly confirming, is that basically Deloitte is saying where we're at today, we've gone from e-learning and blended learning to talent management in 2005 to continuous learning in 2010, though I may not completely agree with that, to 2018, they describe it as digital learning. And then in 2020, they're talking about learning in the flow of work. Now, this is Deloitte, right? They're saying, look, you're going to be learning in the flow of work. You can't do that unless you literally have a platform using technology that enables your people to be learning as they're selling. And we're just talking sales. We're not talking learning as they're doing customer success.
Sure, all the other, right.
Field engineering. So the research clearly shows that our platform and what we're doing, it's not only coming our way, it's our way now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say based on the dates that you gave, whether they're precise or not, that actually reality is lagging those dates by 5 or 7 years. But
totally agree with you, Andy.
But the trend is there, right? But I think you really, and you have just a couple of minutes left in this, is we start off the conversation, as we talked about our first conversation, is that there's sobering statistics about productivity. I wouldn't say productivity, I'll say performance in sales, right? And levels of attainment. And because the underlying productivity is horrible, we're just going to start with performance. It says, look, we've got this huge gap opportunity, but it's currently a gap, is to create a culture of learning in sales, because it's such a part of the profession, right? The people that rise to the top, sort of the old Brian Tracy, right? Read a book a month and I guarantee you'll be in the top 1% of earners. And I think I agree with that. It's certainly been proven in my own experience and the experience of managing teams of people who do this. So my concern is when we roll out tools like MindTickle, which are
a platform, not a tool.
Yeah, platform. Sorry, is that the sales reps see it as an opportunity, not as, oh my God, it's like CRM. They want us to enter. They want us to do all these things. It's like the company has to create this culture around it, that's saying, yeah, this is not an imposition. This is an opportunity. And how do we communicate that from a corporate standpoint to the individuals that are really the ones that'll make it work?
Right, and make it fun. And I'm not being altruistic in that.
Sure.
I asked one of the founders of MindTickle where the name came from, and he said education plus fun equals MindTickle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of our core, and it's being done by clients like LinkedIn and Symantec and HPE and many others. In fact, for example, Nutanix, some other companies, they're using our platform as their LMS, even though they know it's not an LMS. But companies, I don't want to say they're desperate, but boy, I tell you, a lot of these CLOs, they really are between a rock and a hard place, because if you've been teaching, right, the last 50 years in a corporate learning environment with instructor-led training and manuals, and now it's all moving digitally.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the digital divide. There's this chasm they have to cross.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We're very honored to help these CLOs and people in L&D and training cross that chasm so that they can move toward actually identifying an ROI for the C-suite, identifying outcomes for their people. Look, everybody wants a rich learner engagement if you're in training. Everybody wants that. And that's where MindTickle is a huge differentiator. We're empowering the people in that profession who are tasked with educating not only salespeople, but sales success, customer success, et cetera, to achieve that rich learner engagement.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep them engaged, right? In order for learning to take place. But to go back to your point, Andy, yeah, you have to create a culture of learning. It's hard to do, but I think with a platform like MindTickle and some other technologies out there, it's becoming easier. But I just want to make sure that it actually can become easier, and you don't have to be in high tech. Okay, you don't have to have a tech stack.
Yeah, heaven forbid.
Yeah, you can do it too, and not even know what a tech stack is. Okay.
Yeah, there's a big world, and this audience is not targeting tech world, but we have tech listeners. But there's a big world outside the tech bubble, so this applies to everybody.
Sure.
All right. Well, Pat. Well, thank you very much. As I said, we have a demo recorded. It'll be available to people to see. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about MindTickle? Yeah,
the easiest way is just pat.lynch@mindtickle.com. Pat.lynch, Lynch at mindtickle.com. And happy to pay it forward in any way, shape, form I can, or how our company can help you, the listener, be more successful in what you're trying to achieve.
Great. All right, Pat, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Pat. Again, that was Pat Lynch, Vice President of Sales Enablement Excellence and Innovation at MindTickle. Now, joining me next, as always, at this time is my friend, Bridget Gleason. Bridget is the Vice President of Sales at Logs.io. Now, today, Bridget and I are going to tackle a pretty simple topic, commissions. As in, are commissions still an effective way to motivate reps? An effective way to incentivize the types of sales behaviors that companies want to see? I mean, if we eliminated commissions and had salespeople on salary, as many successful companies do and have done in the past, what would change about sales as a profession? All right, let's explore that. Let's jump into it. Bridget, how are you doing?
Captain Andy. I was going to say Captain Fantastic for you, but Captain Andy.
No. See, Captain Fantastic,
I really own it. I really own it.
You do, and you're about ready to ascend into the pantheon of like Marvel comic heroes. Captain Fantastic. That should be a superpower. Great at sales.
Okay. I mean, like superpowers.
Yeah, we've got. I haven't seen the new Deadpool that's out, but I understand one of the quote unquote mutants that they have in that community is somebody who's like doesn't have a power. And I thought, okay, well that would fit me. Say a character with a dad bod and so on.
So funny. That's great.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing it. So, anything else new with you?
What was the first thing new? No. What else is new with me? I'm going to Italy. So I've got some vacation coming up, which I'm very excited about.
Where in particular are you going?
Going to Florence and then south to the Amalfi Coast.
Oh, beautiful. So you're going to hike along the Amalfi Coast?
We'll do some hiking and swimming and relaxing.
Eating, drinking,
all of that. The whole thing.
So will you still get it on the Amalfi Coast where I wouldn't necessarily recommend it? Would you still get up in the morning and run? Or are you going to take a vacation from running when you go on vacation?
No. I'll still run. I'll either run or swim.
Okay. Well, I could say swimming in the waters off the Amalfi Coast, but I think that's not necessarily a road I'd want to go running on unless you could find some other place to run.
Well, we'll be in Positano.
Florence, though.
Yeah,
nice place to run.
If you go early. But Positano has some pretty places. It's hilly.
Yeah.
But there's some, you don't want to be on the main road, but there's some pretty places. It's doable.
Yeah, last time I was in Florence, there was a 10K that took place. I wish I had known about it. We showed up the night before, and my wife and I were out wandering around looking for a place to buy pastry.
There you go.
and coffee for her. And yeah, it was sort of amazing 10K right through the heart of old Florence. It looked
wonderful.
Yeah, it looked like it would have been a lot of fun, but I had no idea.
But you missed it. I
missed it. Yeah. We showed up after it got started. Otherwise, I might have done it.
Well,
you might check the website before you go. Just FYI.
Okay. Right. I'll do that.
It was sort of at this time of year.
Spare time.
Sort of at this time of year. Yeah, spare time.
Okay, good.
All right. So here's today's topic, and I know we don't have a ton of time today because I know you have to go sell something. So is commission still relevant?
Ask my sales reps. Why are they always complaining about it if it's not relevant?
Well, I just wonder if it's. Yeah, you read the reports. We've got this issue, CSO Insight, saying we've got this issue with fewer than 50% of reps attaining quota, and you and I have talked in the past about low close rates, and it's like, all right, well, if we take all these factors, and Forrester's report about declining close rates in B2B as well, it's like, commissions don't seem to be having the impact that we want. I mean, is it sort of like? I was wondering whether I read an article this weekend that sort of triggered the thought. It was about, the crazy CEO salaries in big companies, right? Where they pay somebody, $20 million a year. And somebody had done a study saying that, paying the big salaries has had absolutely no impact at all on the performance of these companies or on their share prices. So companies are basically getting nothing for the exorbitant salaries they've created out of these celebrity CEOs. And it just got me thinking about sales, right? Do we really need the commissions to attract the best and the brightest if that's what we're shooting for, and hopefully we are? Given sort of where we're at now in terms of industry performance, profession performance across multiple industries. Just wondering. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not on one side or the other necessarily, but I think it's a conversation worth having, not just you and I, but on a broader basis is, do we really need to offer that as a way to get the people into the sales that can help us close business?
Well, let me ask you, would you have gone into sales if it didn't have the financial sort of upside and swing and potential?
I think that on balance, probably. Yeah. I mean, I think that on balance, I would have made, over the course of my career, probably would have made, setting aside, equity in startups, but from a salary and compensation, incentive compensation, probably would have made as much had I been, VP of marketing most of those years in startups and so on, as opposed to, so granted, some of it's affected by the fact I was always working for startups that underpay compared to, or historically underpaid,
right,
compared to market jobs. That's less so the case today than it was, but yeah, probably. I mean, my first job in sales the percentage of commission I got paid was so small, it really wasn't a difference maker.
So, I mean, this is a good one. I would love to get rid of commissions, actually.
Really?
I'd love to. Yeah. It ends up taking a lot of time, a lot of cycles. Am I getting paid? Am I getting dinged? Am I doing this? Am I doing just a lot? I wouldn't have the same reps for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There are many that they like that, based on what they do and how they work, that they can make more. So I think I wouldn't have the same reps. Now, that doesn't mean that it wouldn't necessarily be a good net result at the end.
I know. One of the things I was thinking about is that, there are no shortage of professions that attract bright, competitive, ambitious people to come into them that aren't sales. People are looking to get ahead in their careers. People are looking to make a good dollar. People to look, ambitious in terms of getting promoted. That in the professions where there are sort of objective performance measurements, increasingly across professions there are. So it's like, I just wondered whether we're reaching a sort of a point where commissions are actually scaring people away from the profession, some of the talented people, as opposed to attracting them. But maybe we're attracting people that see it as a way to make more money that perhaps wouldn't succeed in other professions.
I don't know. I think one thing that I do think about is there's a lot of pressure in sales, and to hit numbers, and I think if I were getting paid half, would it be worth the pressure? Hell no. Like, and I'm not saying that sort of where I sit today, but I think there's a lot of pressure, and I don't think the pressure would be any less to bring in deals. So I don't know. It's a really good question. I mean, there are companies that they don't pay commissions anymore
and do quite well.
And I really like that.
Well, I wonder if that takes some of the pressure off.
Well,
and in taking the pressure off, and I've written about this in the last year based on some studies I'd read, that the pressure can actually be counterproductive.
Yeah, but do you think a CEO is going to put less pressure on sales if he's not paying commissions?
No, but I'm saying that the fact of the commission puts more pressure on people and can actually, in certain situations, lower their performance. The expectation, as opposed to when you take away the commission itself, they still pressure to get the deal closed, but just everybody's got pressure to perform. I mean, the thing is, do we make more of the pressure to perform in sales? Yeah, I think we do, perhaps, and perhaps rightly so. But it's not the only job out there where people have to perform. And look at people, and if you have a manufacturing facility, right? Or your software development team, they got to pressure perform to get products out at a certain time to make sure the code's good, solid, works as promised, and so on. Yes, pressure's all over.
Yeah, but I would say, and this is not true in every situation, and I would say at Logs.io, we have an amazing engineering team that gets code out at such velocity and quality that stuns me. But I have seen in other organizations where an engineering team can miss a deadline, or it just continues. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, well, it slips a week. God, we didn't know it was going to take so long. And that's not where I am right now, but I've seen that, and I've never seen that in sales. I've never seen it in sales where it's like, it doesn't matter if we miss a quarter or a month or.
True. No, that's true. I mean,
so that's why I wonder. Yeah,
it's again, I think this is a conversation that's worth having on a broader scale. And I know some, as you said, some companies have had it. They've decided no commissions. And yeah, I think if you're, part of when you look at sort of the specialization of sales, one of the things you're really seeing is that, it really becomes more of a team effort to some degree. Everybody has their role to play. And if somebody doesn't play the role, the outcome doesn't happen. But it used to be that historically, salespeople looked at commissions as compensation for risk. Right? I'm in a risky profession. I could be fired any month if I don't hit my numbers. Therefore, I need these commissions. That's almost like it's almost like a compensation for the risk. Yeah. And as you split the process up into smaller pieces that a different person has responsibility for each piece, the risk is spread. And it doesn't, to me, at least doesn't make sense in all cases to just automatically assume that you should be paying commission to the person who just happened to be there when the deal closed, because quite honestly, I'm not a big believer in quote unquote closers anyway. Customers tend to make decisions in a room without a salesperson present.
Yeah, sometimes, but a salesperson can do an awful lot in the process, and they're not the only one.
I know. I'm not, and believe me, I'm in sales. I mean, I just think there's so many issues here that, again, I wonder whether we're actually holding people back from coming into the profession based on that, and very capable, competent people. And anyway, we're not going to solve that today, but it's just, I think people need to start thinking outside the conventional way about salespeople, what constitutes a salesperson, what do we really want salespeople to accomplish, and are we really moving that forward by paying commissions as opposed to salaries?
I love the topic, and I'd love to try it. I'd love to be in a place where maybe that's my next thing. I'd love to be in a place where there was no commissions.
All right. So employers out there, when Bridget's ready,
I've got to go. I've got to go close the deal now. I've got to go help close the deal, which I love.
All right. This is a great way to end the program. Bridget's going to go close the deal. Friends, thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you again next week.
It's a team sport.
That's right.
All right. Bye. Looking forward to it.
Okay, friends, that was Accelerate for the week. First of all, I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank my guests, Pat Lynch and my friend Bridget Gleason. Join me again next week as I'm joined by my guest, Kevin Freiberg. Kevin is a best-selling author and biographer of business leaders, and we're going to talk about his new book, Bocce Ball, The Chemistry of Winning and Losing in Baseball, Business, and Life. And it's stories about the lessons you can learn from the great baseball manager, Bruce Bochy, manager of the San Francisco Giants. And of course, no Accelerate would be complete without swapping stories with my friend Bridget. As always, she'll be joining me for our weekly conversation, so be sure to join us then. Thanks again to our sponsor, Discover.org, for their ongoing support of Accelerate. Thanks again for joining me, and until next week, good selling, everyone.